Hi there, everyone. Welcome to our session today. I'm just going to say a few words about how today is going to run, and then we'll introduce ourselves. So today you're going to be hearing from a couple of us staff in the subject area of English Language and Linguistics and some former students who'll talk about their experiences of studying here so that you can get to know what it will really be like. So you've got myself and Dr. Clara Cohen. She's here on the screen as well. We are staff members in English Language and Linguistics, and we're delighted to be joined by Stacey and Yuliana, who are some of our previous students. Stacey on the MSc Applied Linguistics program and Yuliana on the MSc English Language and Linguistics program. And you'll hear from both of them and one of our other alumni a little bit later on. So I will say a few words about me, my role at the university, my teaching and my research. So at the moment, I am the postgraduate convener across the School of Critical Studies, and the School of Critical Studies is where the subject of English Language and Linguistics is housed. And I teach on a number of different courses in our subject area, including social and individual variables in language teaching and learning, and applying linguistics in social and professional life. So maybe you can infer from the titles of those courses that I'm really interested in all things to do with language education, so how we teach and learn languages. And this is what I focus on then in my postgraduate teaching, and it's also what I research. And at the moment, my research is looking at the internationalization of higher education and all sorts of questions and issues to do with language that this brings up. So that's a little bit of the focus on my area of interest. But of course, English language and linguistics is so much broader than that. There are many, many different specialisms within the whole field of English language and linguistics. We're a really broad and diverse discipline, and I hope that you'll get a sense of this as you listen to myself and Clara speak, and also get to know some of the interests of our former students as well. So in addition to language education, we've also got staff in our subject who specialise in things like forensic linguistics, discourse analysis, stylistics, sociolinguistics, psycholinguistics, and onomastics, to name but a few. And before we talk about the three programs that we have on offer, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the MSc in Applied Linguistics, and I'll pass over to Clara, who's going to tell you about the MSc in English Language and Linguistics and in Speech, Language and Sociolinguistics. I just want to say a few words about some of the support that is available for our students. So we offer lots of different kinds of support for our students across the three programs so that they can get the most out of their studies. So to give you an example, we've got a bespoke academic writing support course, which is called Advancing English for Applied Linguistics. And this is open to all students in our subject area. And it helps our students with developing and practicing the necessary academic skills, so things like how to structure your writing, how to cite appropriately, which are required in both your core and option courses. So it's a really important aspect of support that we have for our students in English Language and Linguistics. And another thing to make you aware of is that we have staff drop-in hours during the semester, and we strongly encourage our students to use these. So we all have a dedicated hour per week where students can drop in and chat to us, and we love to hear from students about how their work is going and any questions that they have. And what we've found over the last few years is that students who use our drop-in hours tend to do well in their studies because they're taking that initiative to come and engage in depth with us. So that's just a little bit of an introduction to our subject area. And as I promised, we're now going to say a little bit more detail about the three programs that we offer in our subject. So the first one is the MSc in Applied Linguistics. So you might be wondering then, what can I expect from this program, from the MSc in Applied Linguistics? So this program is really all about the role that language plays in society in so many different ways. So if you take this program, you'll become really knowledgeable about language and education, intercultural communication, things like language and politics and professional discourse. It's a program with a really diverse range of students, and we have student cohorts from all over the world who speak a lot of different languages and from a lot of different cultures. And one of the most exciting things, I think, is getting to learn from all of your peers' experiences and to make new friends with people from all over the world. One of the things that students, of course, want to know about before they start their studies is what kind of assessment they can expect on all the different programs. So with the MSc in Applied Linguistics, there are different kinds of assessments for each course that you might take within that program. So it might be things like written assignments, which we might think of as a more traditional method of assessment. And there's also more innovative forms of assessment. So things like delivering presentations and writing blog posts as well. So there's a lot of variation in the kinds of assessment that you might have. Some of the things that our students have done for the dissertations might also be of interest. So we have 2 semesters of taught courses, and then in the summer months, students decide what they're really interested in and they do a small research project on that basis. This is their dissertation that they do. So the sorts of dissertation topics within applied linguistics are things like examining academic language support in English language university education in Vietnam. It might be something like the production of English vowels by second language learners, or something like public apologies from Hollywood stars. So those are just 3 examples of the huge range of dissertation topics that students choose in our program on the MSc Applied Linguistics. As I say, students follow up a really niche idea about something that they particularly are interested in. And the final thing to say before I pass over to Clara to talk a little bit about our other 2 programs in the subject area is that if you take the MSc Applied Linguistics, then you are really welcome to take courses from other parts of the School of Critical Studies. So you might focus, of course, on applied linguistics, but choose to do 1 or 2 outside courses. So to give you an example, also, some of our students even take courses from the School of Education, so those which are affiliated with the MSc TESOL program. So that's just an overview of the different aspects of the MSc Applied Linguistics. And I'll pass over to Clara now to talk about our other 2 programs that we have.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm going to start, as Angela did, with an introduction of myself and my research interests before I talk about the programs, because you are a captive audience and I must describe myself first. So I'm Clara Cohen. I am the convener of, I'm sort of simultaneously, I'm wearing 2 hats. It depends which month you get me at. Currently, I'm the convener of the English Language and Linguistics MSc program. In the middle of next year, I'm going to switch over and be the convener of the Speech Language and Sociolinguistics program. I have been that convener before. I will be that convener again. So I'm here to wear all the hats. In my own research interests, I am a psycholinguist by profession, which means I research the experimental. I use experimental methods to research how we process language in our minds. So I'm interested in what happens between the moment an idea hits our head and we splurt it out of our mouths, and also on the opposite direction, the moment some sound waves hit our ears and what happens to get between there in our ears and meaning in our heads. So that's me. And I'm going to be talking about 2 programs here. I'm going to start with the Speech Language and Sociolinguistics Master's program, because that's the more focused one. So that program emphasizes the experimental and the empirical and the data analytics side of work. So we are interested in making sure that you understand how things like phonetics work, how things like sociolinguistics work, how things like experiments work. If you're interested in just going out there and collecting data about how people speak and how their speech varies across different social groups, and what do you do with that data? How do you analyze it? How do you know that the patterns that seem to appear in it are reliable patterns representing a genuine tendency rather than noise because your microphone was a little bit wonky? We give you the tools to do that. The English Language and Linguistics program is much more general. It has many fewer required courses than the Speech Language and Sociolinguistics program. And it's I don't want to say it's our undecided program, because there are many students who come in and know exactly what they want to do and they want to do the ELL program, but since it doesn't have required courses that force you to learn skills like statistical analysis and computer programming, like the Speech Language and Sociolinguistics course does, it's where everyone can live. So if you're interested in medieval history, in medieval like, the language of Chaucer or the semiotics of manuscript illuminations, then you can do that in our English Language and Linguistics MSc. If you're interested in discourse analysis and linguistic landscapes, you can do that in our English Language and Linguistics MSc. Or indeed, if you're interested in phonetics and sociolinguistics and experimental analysis, you can also do that in our English Language and Linguistics MSc. So speech-language linguistics is data-focused, oriented towards phonetics and sociolinguistics and statistical analysis. English Language and Linguistics is what you do if you're not quite sure, or if you have interests that are not covered in the other programs. And we do let you switch between programs in the middle of the year if you have to. Okay, so that is our programs. So the assessments are very similar across all of the three programs. So there are going to be the individual coursework assessments, and those will vary from course to course. They might be a portfolio of work, they might be a final essay, they might be you have to build an experiment, they might be you have to analyze some data, they might be you have to conduct a data analysis project and collect your own data. I'm focusing on the SLS examples because those are the ones I know the best. So there are many different types of assessment that depend on the course, and then there are the summer dissertations, which are exactly the same in the speech language and sociolinguistics and the English language and linguistics courses and the applied linguistics courses. Some examples of dissertation topics: you might have seen me take a piece of paper from my bulletin board behind me a moment ago, and I'm now going to show you what that was. So an example of a previous dissertation topic that is very near and dear to my heart was done by a student in the speech language and sociolinguistics program who wanted to study how gender identity and experience with different types of gendered language affect people's ability to learn new grammatical categories. And so she invented a language called Blorpies. This might be mirrored. On my screen, it's mirrored. I take a screenshot and then flip it around, and you can see what it looks like. But she created these little guys called blorps.
It seems clear, Clara.
Okay.
It appears clearly.
Okay, good. Then it's just mine that's mirrored. Okay, so she created these little guys called blorps, and she invented a very simple language that included abnormal, unfamiliar gender categories and number categories, and then she studied how people learned that language and looked at whether it was different for transgender people and cisgender people. So that was one very cute project. The blorps were adorable. We've had other projects that look at things like the linguistic landscapes of restaurant signs, the semiotics and linguistic landscape of restaurant signs in the city center of Glasgow. We've had discourse analysis of the tradwives phenomenon on YouTube. We've had a wide variety of projects that can go anywhere from in-lab experiments that analyze, where your gaze moves, tracks your eyes to see how quickly you understand written language, to learning fake languages, to going out into the center of the city and interviewing shop owners about their signage choices, to describe how the culture of the city affects the linguistic landscapes. Okay. Yes, and can students take any modules from out with the school and college? Yes, that is absolutely a possibility. And in fact, for the speech language and sociolinguistics course, there is a required statistical analysis class. But if you come in already knowing the basics of how to use R in statistical analysis, then we might encourage you to take a course in, for example, the psychology department, which can go a little bit more in depth into those skills. And in fact, the student who did the blorps project also did end up going to psychology to get her statistical training. Okay, so that is the programs and the dissertations and etc.
Thank you so much, Clara. I hope that from everything that we have said, just to recap about our three programs, so the MSc Applied Linguistics, the MSc Speech Language and Sociolinguistics, and the MSc English Language and Linguistics, I hope that at this stage it's helping you to get the breadth of understanding about all of the different things that this subject area of English language and linguistics encapsulates. So it runs the gamut from some of the things that Clara was outlining, which are really aligned with her expertise, some of the more technical, the more quantitative driven kinds of projects that you can do, all the way through to the analysis of historical manuscripts and everything in between. So as I say, I hope it helps you to understand all of the diversity that exists in our subject area. So I'm sure something that you're really excited about is hearing from our past students. And before I pass on to them, I'm going to introduce some of the things that they have to say by talking a little bit about the kinds of skills that you can develop in your postgraduate studies in English language and linguistics, and where this might lead you afterwards. So I had a think about what I think the key skills are. We might call these graduate attributes that students can develop if you study in English language and linguistics. So for me, I would say that one of the most important things that our alumni gain from their studies is the capacity for critical thinking. So we could say that critical thinking is learning how to think in depth about important issues and learning how to question information as well. So questioning the validity of what we're being presented with and the source of where a piece of information is coming from. And I think this is a really valuable life skill. Of course, it is fundamental to postgraduate studies, but it's really relevant to everything that you will do in your life beyond your studies as well. I think what's also really important is developing skills in taking a wide range of information and being able to synthesize and summarize it. So this is something that I do in my job all of the time, working in a university. I'm faced with a lot of information and I have to work out how to condense that, how to summarize that. And I know that it's something that's pertinent for so many jobs outside of higher education as well. I know so many friends of mine who work in different areas that have to do similar things in their roles as well. So for our students, for example, who are just about to embark on their dissertations at this time of year, this is one of the key things that they will have to do for their dissertation. It's a really useful preparation before they go off to do their own research. They need to understand that field of scholarship, to understand what kind of work has already been done and what sort of key findings there are in that field, where the gaps are, to be able to shape their own ideas about their research. So I think this is one of the other really key skills that you get from postgraduate study. And the final thing that I think is worth mentioning in terms of the skills that you develop, and that I think is really relevant no matter what you go on to do after your postgraduate studies, is time management. So in my experience, and I think Clara would agree with me, successful students are ones who are able to plan their time really, really well, manage competing deadlines and manage their competing responsibilities. And I know that no matter what you go on to do afterwards, this is something that's going to serve you well, I would say, for the rest of your life. So thinking about those next steps then after postgraduate studies, our students go on to do a range of different things after graduation. So one key example I know is language teaching. Of course, this aligns with my own interest in language education. A lot of our students have gone on to roles in that sort of field. Some of our students might go on to different roles in universities as well. Other students have gone on to do things in marketing, also publishing and materials development, lexicography, which is the development of dictionaries, and also policy roles as well. So from this diversity, you can see that a postgraduate degree in English language and linguistics can really set you up for a range of what I would say are really exciting professional pathways. And this is why it's so important for us to hear it from our former students in just a second. So the final thing on that same theme to talk about is the opportunities for placements and internships that are relevant to our course. So we know this is something that students are really interested in, is getting as much experience as they can during their postgraduate studies at the University of Glasgow. So we agreed that a great way to develop professional skills and experience is by doing an internship during your time as a student with us. And this year, we're really excited that we've set up an internship program with one of our partner universities in Vietnam. And in addition to this particular internship at our Vietnamese university, there are so many opportunities that are available through the University of Glasgow Internship Hub. And this is something that we would support our students doing as well. So just a whistle-stop tour us through some of the key things related to skills and employability, which, as I say, I know a lot of our applicants are really keen to hear about. But now I'm going to open it up to our alumni. So I said at the beginning of the call, we're delighted to be joined by Stacey and Yuliana on the call with us today. And we're going to ask some questions then about some of Stacey and Yuliana's experiences as postgraduate students at the University of Glasgow. And I really hope that from what they say, you'll see some examples and some really good explanations of the points that Clara and I have already been making. So first of all, I'd like to ask you both, what skills do you feel you developed during your postgraduate studies? And what do you feel you gained from the program that you studied? Stacey, can we kick off with you?
Sure. So I would definitely echo some of what you've said in terms of things like research skills, critiquing research, critiquing sources. I studied on the MSc Applied Linguistics, and now I'm a teacher for English for academic purposes, research projects, and English for language and linguistics as well. So super, super relevant for me. I have the content side, so I did assessments on things like reflective writing, teacher language beliefs, willingness to communicate, motivation. All of those things feed directly into my everyday practice, as well as building those specific skills throughout as I went. And I would also just say, from watching how you had designed courses as well and how the instruction went, that was also really informative because we got that experience of seeing, okay, I like that. That works. How can I then model that in my own practice as well?
Amazing. So to summarize then, Stacey, it seems you've learned from your postgraduate studies in two different ways. So it's not only the content of the things that you've learned, and you mentioned some great examples there from language education, things like willingness to communicate, language learning motivation, which are key areas in that field of study, but also being able to see more about how courses get designed and how they get structured, which is a really cool perspective. Thank you so much. Yuliana, what about you? What sort of skills do you think you developed during your postgraduate studies?
So I believe that becoming a subject specialist is one of the most important skills that we get because we really become experts in our field, experts in our dissertation. For example, we do deep research in our classes and then we move on to be more independent researchers when we're carrying out our dissertation. So having that trust in yourself and that confidence to also engage with the material, to discern between what's important and what isn't important, to see what you dedicate your time and your efforts to. And making those decisions become a really important aspect of your education because they really make you more independent and they put you in control of what you want to do in the future. So I believe also they connect with your likes and your dislikes. And then you also discover yourself throughout this program. You can start this master thinking, oh, yeah, I like this and I like that. But once you finish, you might be in a totally different place and you may discover things about yourself that you were not expecting. So I think you not only learn about the content, but you also learn a lot about yourself.
I think that's such a great thing to share with the people who are listening today. So the fact that postgraduate study allows that opportunity for self-exploration. So I think you're right, Juliana. I would say this totally coheres with my own experiences, that when we see students start in September, they maybe come into our 3 programs with quite a clear idea of the sorts of things they're interested in. They might already have a clear idea of what it is they want to go on to do after their postgraduate studies as well. But very often over those 12 months, we see our students get interested in lots of different things because of the courses that they're taking, because of conversations they're having with staff and with their colleagues in class as well, with the other students. And I think that's such an exciting thing to see as well. So it's a great point to put to the people who are listening. Thanks, Juliana. I think this next question that I've got for you both is actually really connected to what you've just brought up then. So I'd love to hear you both speak more about what you feel you learned about yourself over the course of postgraduate study. And I'll start with you, Juliana, because that was something that you were touching on already. What do you feel you learned about yourself during your studies here?
So definitely areas that I was more interested on than others. You know, I came to the program thinking this course and this course will definitely help me a lot because of my background. But then I ended up, you know, by listening to my peers, by talking to my professors, I discovered new passions that not only connected my love for the language, but also let's say that they awoken also a part of myself that I didn't know I had, about some epistemic justice, that also connected not only the language with, yeah, I'm gonna be a teacher, I'm going to teach this in the future, but also more how we perceive the language in our context, based on our cultures, based also on people from other cultures. What is the role of language in this particular process? So for me, right, it expanded. Not only, yeah, I'm going to study semantics, I'm going to study the syntax, but also what is the connection that we as people have with the language and how it can help us relate to others.
That's fascinating. Thank you so much, Yuliana. And Stacey, what about you? What do you feel you learned about yourself during your studies?
I think one thing for me was that I could join the academic community. Often we kind of do that distancing of that's the academic community and here's me. Whereas throughout the research training course, we were constantly going to different events, different conferences, watching different discussions taking place. And then for each one, we would do kind of a summary and evaluation of that study. And it just kind of made the whole thing more accessible, so that then by the time I was working on my dissertation, I felt more able to engage with people, more able to send out an email and ask questions that maybe I wouldn't have felt comfortable doing beforehand.
Excellent. I think that's a great point to bring up, that when you become a postgraduate student, you really are seen as a new member of the academic community in English language and linguistics, and then whatever specialism you have within that. So it's really cool to hear that you gained your confidence with that identity over the course of your studies. Thanks. And let me just briefly introduce Chi. We have a third alumni here as well. Chi is one of our students who was also on the MSc Applied Linguistics. And Chi, the question that I just posed to Stacey and Yuliana, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, is what you feel you learned about yourself during your postgraduate studies, Chi.
Hello everyone. It's been so long since I last saw you. So excited to see everyone.
It's been a while. It's great to have you.
Yeah, it's been a while. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you and Claire still look beautiful.
Oh, thank you. That's very sweet of you to say, Chi. So, Chi, as I say, the question I had just posed, I know you had to join a little bit late. The question I just asked to Stacey and Yuliana, could you say a little bit about what you feel you learned about yourself during your postgraduate studies with us?
Yeah, sure. I think the biggest learning that I got from the program is to learn more about having a kind of like growth mindset. And I realized like mindset is everything. I realized if we limit ourselves like mentally, we stop moving forward. The program itself was so challenging for me, like intellectually challenging, and pushed me to like the very end edge, like to my limits, and encouraging me to grow. And I learned that if I keep moving forward, like even the toughest problems will be eventually like broken down and solved nicely. And at the same time, like during my time studying there, I feel like I value more about like clarity through like progress. Like we don't have to figure things out at the beginning. Like the more we go, the clearer the picture is. Like I was doing a joint major of business and linguistics before this MSc. Like I like linguistics, but I was unsure about like what specific area of linguistics that I wanted to pursue, as there were so many aspects within this massive field. So I decided to work in like business for like a couple of years, and then I realized that applied linguistics was something that I wanted to explore further, like seeing how linguistics can solve like real world problems in different societal contexts. So I love that so much. So I made the decisions, and then by the end of the program, I also realized that like I might want to do a PhD at some point in the future. I like the challenges and the intellectual stimulations that academia offers. But I was like, and I'm still like uncertain about the exact path. And I see like this is gonna be like a super long journey, not just like just 1 or 2 years, but it's gonna be like a very big commitment. So I keep the same thinking, like just to clarify my next steps. I want to explore other things first to see what I'm gonna do in the future. So that's why I end up in my current position right now. So I work in the industry, and I focus on what I'm interested in first. And at the same time, I have the kind of mindset that whether what I'm doing right now has the potential research directions in the future, so that I can also like bring my industry insights and like personal insights into my next chapter. Yeah.
That's so cool, Chi. I think there's a number of really interesting things you've said in your response there. So, as you say, talking about how things that you have explored in your postgraduate studies connect with what you do professionally. And I'm going to ask you a lot more about that in detail in a second. And I also really like what you said about the growth mindset that students develop during their postgraduate studies. And I agree with you. I think that is so, so important. And I think that connects with what you said about being comfortable with uncertainty. So not knowing the answers all of the time. And I think this is so relevant for postgraduate level study, is that a lot of the time there will be ambiguity and there will be some gray areas that you have to try and manage. And I think working that through is a really important skill from postgraduate studies. Thank you so much, Chi. That's great. I see that we have a question in the chat, and the question from Bree, hi Bree, is with 4 taught classes, how many hours is that in the classroom studying and preparing? And I think that's a great thing to focus on. So I'll say a little bit about how it works for my courses, and Clara, maybe you want to chip in. And then I think it's a really useful thing to hear from our alumni of how they balanced the contact hours, so the time that they had in the classroom, with the other study tasks that they had to do per week. So for example, for the courses that I teach, they all have 2 hours of contact per week. So we have a 2-hour seminar, and the 2 hours in the classroom is where we have the opportunity to get together and speak interactively about the content, really develop our understanding of quite complex material, ask each other questions about our understanding of it. So really debate and negotiate what the content is all about for that topic that week. And it might be things like Stacey has already given examples of, things like foreign language anxiety or language learning motivation. In preparation for those 2 hours, students do a number of preparatory tasks. So things like doing a couple of academic readings and taking detailed notes about that. Sometimes for my courses, I have 1 or 2 very short lecture videos that I have my students watch just to get them familiar with some of the key principles in that particular area. I know that the students here who have taken my courses will be familiar with the idea of a learning journal, where you take really, really structured and detailed notes about the reading that you've done to help you feel confident in coming to class to contribute. So that gives an idea of the balance between the time that we have in class together and also some of the other tasks that you need to do outside of the classroom. Clara, do you want to say a little bit about how it works for your courses as well?
Yeah, so for the courses that I teach, or am involved in teaching, because there are a number of courses that are co-taught, another structure is to separate out lecture course meetings in the classroom with seminar meetings. So a lecture meeting would be a more traditional park and bark. The lecturer gets up and presents some information at the front of the classroom. I mean, we don't just talk for an hour, like there are activities and so on as well. And then there are seminar meetings where students are expected to have done some reading outside of class, or to have done some task outside of class, and they come in prepared to describe it exactly as Angela describes. So one of my other courses, I also have an additional type of contact hour called a workshop, in which, rather than discussing the content and the readings, we learn hands-on skills, like how do you design an experiment? How do you counterbalance your experimental conditions across different types of lists and stimuli, that kind of a thing. So we can have workshops where you learn hands-on skills. We can have seminars where students are expected to actively discuss what they've been doing outside of class. And then there are lectures where you come and actively listen rather than sitting in a classroom and turning off your brain, because I know that you are all good students who do not passively turn off your brains during lecture. Typically, it's about 2 contact hours per week, or maybe 3 contact hours a week. But then outside of class, there is, of course, reading assignments. In my statistical analysis class, I also have about an hour of videos in which I walk people through lines of code step by step with lots of screenshots saying, this is how to read a data frame in, this is how to do a t-test, this is how to create a bar plot, and so on, to make sure that you have been introduced to all of the elements of code that you'll then be expected to apply in the seminars to actually accomplish the analytical tasks. Sometimes the seminars have a lot of people watching the videos because they realize they need them to do the exercises. So, I'll tell you now, do the out of class work out of class. And how many hours is it? It is, we have an official formula for that, don't we? It's 3 hours out of class for every 1 hour of lecture, and 2 hours out of class for every 1 hour of seminar, I think, is the official guide. But of course, if it can take you more or less depending on how conscientious you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Clara. That's really helpful. And I want to throw it open to our alumni then, just if you have any additional comments about how you balanced that workload. So the in-class time with the other kinds of tasks that you had to do to support that learning. I'll just throw it open to all 3 of you, if any of you would like to jump in on that.
I think I could say something on that. I'm a very organized person. I need to be. So I would have fixed events in my calendar and then flexible events. So I would work out, okay, this week I have X, Y, and Z reading. I feel motivated to look at this one. I don't feel motivated to look at this one right now, so I'm just going to swap those over. No problem. That's fine. It's before. I would also take a look through, and right at the start of term, write in all of the deadlines that I need. And I know it's an obvious thing, but it does make that difference of, okay, if I fall behind on this one, there's going to be trouble down the line because of X, Y, and Z. So having those deadlines all laid out and then working out how many hours per week I had available with breaks prepped in and with key life events and real life as well as academic life slotted in there. Having that level of structure really helped me because, like you said, there is a lot more time spent outside of class than inside class. So just having a little structure there really helped me.
Yeah, I can't emphasize enough how important good time management is. So I think those are some fantastic tips from Stacey about how to ensure that you hit all your targets with the various things that need to be done for each of your courses. It's such great examples there. Yuliana or Chi, would you like to share anything further about your own experiences of that? Basically, I mean, we're talking about time management, right?
I agree completely, right? And I also think that it's important to play with your strengths, to know which are the assignments that perhaps are going to take you a little bit more of time because of, your way of learning as well. So if, for example, you're more of a practical person and you know that writing essays is going to be a little bit easier for you, that's something important to consider than if you, for example, know that reading or going through academic papers is dreadful for you and you take a lot of time. Then of course you really need to balance that, and it's not just like, oh yeah, for every course I'm going to dedicate 3 hours, but actually understanding which course for you is going to take more and it's going to need much more effort, and which others you feel more comfortable and can actually maybe 1 hour per week, 2 hours per week is going to be enough. So that part of understanding yourself and learning about yourself comes again to play because you need to know what's best for you.
Yeah, and I think to build on that, I would say that every student's experiences are going to be really individual because everyone does have different strengths and limitations with that. So it's a really good point to keep in mind as well. Yeah. Chi, is there anything else you wanted to add?
I think I totally agree with what everyone just mentioned. I find it super helpful and great that we have the self-study time. I would say that we didn't have much time in classrooms. Like we didn't have like just a couple of sessions a week. But for me, I find it I like it that way. Maybe some for other people, like it wouldn't be like the best approach for them. But for me, myself personally, I really like that because it just gives me like my own time, my own space to digest things and to research on my own, rather than have like the constant fit of knowledge from different sources. Yeah, so we have some time to digest, we have some time to analyze, and then we go to the classroom and then we make the most of the hour by discussing with other people instead of just taking in the information. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's actually a really good point to push on a bit more. There is an expectation of independent learning here. There's an expectation that most of the learning happens outside of the classroom. In the classroom is when we structure what you're going to do next. We give you some ways of approaching new information. We give you the opportunity to discuss the new information that you have learned, but the actual acquisition of new knowledge comes in your own time outside of class, because that is part of what postgraduate study is about, is the independence of being able to accomplish hard tasks independently. So we'll help you with them in class, we'll help you with them in our drop-in hours, but we do expect you to take responsibility for your own learning.
Yeah, that's a great summary. Thanks, Clara. I want to pick up now on one of the things that Stacey, and I think Chi as well, has already alluded to. So the ways in which all of the things that you've learned and all of the skills that you've developed during your postgraduate studies, how they have informed what you're doing now in your professional life. So maybe you would each like to say, just describe very, very briefly the nature of your role and how that connects with what you learned in your postgraduate studies. As I say, it could be specific content or it could be skills. I'd love to hear a little bit more about this. Chi, can I start with you? So can you just very briefly describe your role and talk about how it has been informed by what you did in your postgraduate studies?
So I work in a marketing agency, so where I work with like different clients coming from different industries. And the critical and analytical thinking skills that I gained from the postgrad program have been so crucial in my work. Like they help me approach the problems with sharp and in-depth mindset. So enabling me to solve clients' challenges in a way that exceed their expectations. Also in marketing, like understanding people's behavior is so important, and thinking what drives them to make like certain decisions. And my background in applied linguistics has been so valuable, as well as it helped me understand the relationship between language identity and behaviors, everything, the intercorrelation around that. Of course, it's not always like directly applicable, but the insights from the studies and the way that I think definitely shape the way that I solve the problems these days. Yeah.
It's really interesting to hear, Chi, how even in a professional path that you wouldn't think directly connected to English language and linguistics, there are still these connections that you can draw, that you can very obviously see connects to the skills that you developed. And critical thinking, I think, is always a key one to come back to. I totally agree. Yuliana, what about you? Can you just really briefly describe your role and think about the same sorts of things, how your postgraduate studies have informed it?
Sure. So I work as a student service officer in the first year building at the university still. So I work with students. I am the front face if they have, for example, questions regarding enrolling, registering, anything that has to do with their courses, from, administrative tasks, also of certifying letters, documents that they might need, as also helping them with extensions or good cause applications as well. So something that I've liked is that I'm still really connected to the education and to, the student experience. It has helped me a lot that I was a student here. So of course I've been in these students' shoes before, and I know how scary it is when they just first get into the university and what do I do now? How do I organize myself? So it's really nice to still be connected to that experience. And I believe that connected to, from, of course, what I learned in my own master's, being an independent and critical thinker you are not going to be all the time with someone, with an expert next to you, and you really have to take a step and decide what to do next. What's the best course of action. Believe in yourself, adapt yourself. If you don't know all the answers, be investigative and know where to find the answers. And the rich multicultural aspect of the university is something that I cannot emphasize enough. You will talk to people from many different backgrounds, many different languages, and you will learn so many things from them, both from their culture as well, and their experiences. And this is, I think, one of the most important things that you will see when you're here and also when you study at the university.
I think that point about taking initiative is really fundamental, isn't it? Gaining your confidence to be able to make sometimes quite big and scary decisions, but knowing that you have the capacity to be able to do that. I mean, I still have to do that in my job, right? Find the confidence to be able to take that initiative. So it's a really, really valuable life skill. And Stacey, finally over to you, same question.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier on, I'm a teacher. Before joining, I had been teaching English before, but after I started teaching English for academic purposes and was able to design courses and apply all sorts of additional things that I hadn't done before. My dissertation was on feedback-seeking behaviors for postgraduate international students, and lots of fabulous participants gave me amazing insights, and it really, really has changed the way that I am as a teacher, and I've been able to share that with other teachers as well. So every single assessment, I was able to kind of choose topics that would be applicable for me in my context, because we can tailor things how we want. So I have actually I've brought out old assessments and used them to refresh myself. I still use my Mendeley from my software management, my reference management software. I'll still search in things, be like, I have a journal article on that. I know, let me go and find that. Let's look into that in more detail. So every single aspect of it comes in and is relevant for my practice in teaching for the applied linguistics.
Yeah, I love that. And that was really good also that you made reference to the assessment on the courses that you did as part of your studies here, that you can make decisions about writing on a topic that is really personally relevant or of particular interest to you. That's a great thing to cover as well. Yeah. I've got two more questions for our alumni. So two big things that I'd like to know from you. The first of those two things then is, can you tell me about your experiences of Glasgow as a city? So I think, Stacey, you were already really familiar with Glasgow before being a student here at the university. So Chi and Yuliana, I think you'll have a different perspective because you moved to Glasgow specifically to do your studies. Yuliana, could we hear from you first? Could you tell us what you think Glasgow is like as a city to live in?
I think it's a lovely city to live in because there's always something for everybody. If you are more of a social butterfly and you like to go to pubs and you like to, talk to people, you will find, Glasgow is the perfect city for you. Everyone is very friendly, very approachable. There are a lot of pubs that you can go into, activities, artistic, musical, anything that you want, you will find it in Glasgow. But also, if you're more of an introverted person, there are tons of libraries. You know that Glasgow is famous because of its parks, and I can vouch, that it's gorgeous to just go around and see. Now that it's spring, all the flowers are blooming, and it's just such a beautiful sight to see. And you can just sit down, relax, drink something, and have fun. So it was, of course, daunting because of the Scottish accent. I was so scared. What if I didn't understand people here? But again, it's very multicultural, and you will find speakers from all around the world. So you will find, of course, the Glaswegian accent, but you will also find, different types of English, and that's also part of the great experience in here.
And of course, all of us on the call today, we're all representative of really diverse varieties of Englishes. I think that's an important thing. As applied linguists, that's an important thing to say as well. Thank you, Yuliana. Chi, what about you? What were your experiences of moving to Glasgow?
Yeah, I completely agree with Yuliana. The city is very well balanced. Like, very friendly, very calm, but not too busy or like overwhelming. But if you are someone who loves like fast-paced environment and constant stimulation, then I don't think Glasgow is like an ideal place. Or like similarly, if you like want to completely quiet or like shut off from the world, it might not suit you either, because Glasgow is very well balanced, like in between. Yes, yes. So it really depends on like where you are in life right now to see whether this city is for you. Yeah.
For sure. It's definitely not got the hustle and bustle of some
Yeah,
of the
London, for
other
example,
cities,
yeah.
right? It is. It's a nice middle ground, isn't it? It's got so
Yeah.
many things to do, but it's not got that same hustle and bustle. And Stacey, what about your experiences of Glasgow?
So I'm from Glasgow, mostly. So for me, it was really easy coming to Glasgow. We came here when I was 1. But we did have a really diverse international cohort, and it was really nice for me to get to join that and get to speak to people from all around the world and develop that wider network as well, which was great. I would totally echo what everyone's been saying. I hope that it is a friendly city, that it comes across that way. I love the University of Glasgow. It's where I did my undergraduate, it's where I did my postgraduate, it's where I got married. I absolutely love the uni. I think it's a really beautiful campus, and hopefully people will have a good time when they're coming.
I think it's fab to have the three of you on the call today because, as you say, Stacey, you guys, the three of you, are really representative of the diversity of the cohort that we have. So we have some students who know Scotland and know Glasgow super well because they've lived here most or even all of their lives, and also students from all corners of the globe. So Yuliana being from Costa Rica, I should have said this at the beginning, Yuliana from Costa Rica and Chi from Vietnam. And we have students, as I say, from all over the world. So my final question to the three of you is one top tip that you would pass on to people who are starting their postgraduate studies in English Language and Linguistics in September 2025. One top tip from each of you. Stacey, start with you. I'll go Stacey, Chi, and finish with Yuliana.
So I would just say, and this actually connects also with my master's dissertation project, but just don't assume that the answer is no. A lot of things I came and asked about, and everyone was always really willing to have a chat, to be generous with their time, be curious about where you were coming from, and things like I was able to take courses from the MEd TESOL. I was able to ask for guidance on things. I was able to get pointed in certain directions. So I would just say, don't assume the answer is no. Ask. They'll tell you if it's not possible. But if it is possible, I do, in my experience, people have made really, really great things available to me just through doing a bit of research and asking.
And Chi, what about you? One thing you'd like to pass on to students starting in September 2025?
I think just embrace the journey, just trust the journey, and yeah, you will get there. It's going to be very difficult, it's going to be very challenging, but at the end of the day, everyone share the same key moments, and it's important to talk with other people, to share your thoughts, share your feelings, so that you feel like you're not alone. And yeah, this program, the university is super supportive. So
Amazing. Thank you, Chi. Yuliana.
So this one won't come as a surprise to Professor Angela, but definitely go to your professor's office hours. It's so important. Like, we are so scared all the time because it's like, oh, the professors, we believe that they're going to be mad at us or something, or it might be so daunting. But the amount of support that your professors will give you to clarify your questions, to guide you through the assessments, to even, move you into the right direction, or even give you some questions that you might not even considered before. Plus, also just chatting. To be very honest, when I arrived to the country, I came here a little bit later. I even missed my first week, and Angela was there for me. She, I went to her office hours, and it changed, the course of my career, because I felt so supportive and so seen. that it really, considering that you're coming to a city that you don't know about, that you don't, perhaps you don't know anyone here, making those connections will be a great difference, will make a great difference for you, because you will feel that someone cares for you. And sometimes when we are here in a different country, that's what we need, right? That someone is out there actually caring for us. So go to your professor's office hours. They will be very happy to see you. You are not taking anyone's space and you're not bothering anyone. Okay, so definitely go.
I think it chimes with what Stacey has said, right? So if I can summarize then the 3 top tips. Stacey said, don't assume the answer is no. Always ask the question if there's something you're interested in or something you want to know more about. Really consistent with that, as Juliana has said, go to the office hours, speak to the staff members, ask the questions you need to ask, have an informal chat about how your studies are going. It can be so, so supportive, as Juliana says. And then I think a great point to end on is what she said, embrace the journey. It will be challenging. There is no doubt about it. I think master's study is intensive. There are going to be difficulties and there are going to be times when you're a bit uncertain about things. But I think all of our students say when they come to the end of their studies in the following September, all of our students have such positive things to say about what they've taken away from it. And we've heard today from our students, those things might be in terms of personal growth, it might be in terms of the content and the skills that they've acquired. So there are really positive outcomes, even though, as Chi says, there might be challenges along the way, but embrace that journey. You'll see that in the chat, there are email addresses. So my email address and Clara's email address. If there's anything that didn't occur to you as you've been listening to the presentation today, but you'd like to follow up on at a later stage, we're really keen to hear from you. So if there's anything else that you'd like to know more about, and thank you very much for those of you who did pop questions in the chat. I hope that this has been a really instructive hour. So as I say, Clara and I started off just by giving a little bit of background to our subject area and the 3 master's programs. And I think that the really special thing about this session is that you've been able to hear about the experiences from our 3 former students. So I'm really grateful to Stacey, to Juliana and to Chi for taking time out of their day to share with us their experiences. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll bring it to a close there, and Clara and I look forward to hearing from you, and we look forward to seeing you in September. Thanks so much, everyone.